Express yourself. You just can't go wrong now. Express yourself. They need to know it. Express yourselves. It's never wrong if you can do it all the time. Soccer brings the world in motion, and Canada's a co host now. Soccer's got the world in motion. US and Mexico host too. Express yourself. It's one on one. Express yourself. 48 nations all. Express yourself. You can't go wrong, 'cause this might be the best World Cup ever. Soccer's got the world in motion. That I know, it has to be true. Soccer is big sport, and some stories are here for you. All right, so our first year in the whole thing is 1970. As we, of course, last episode took a look at the World Cups from 1930 to 1966, and now we go to 1970. So in 1970, the first World Cup of the decade was colorful, to say the least. It was, worldwide, and everyone worldwide got to see it in color, as color TV was finally getting the credence it needed. So you could see the green of Mexico, the yellow of Brazil, and the white of England. Anyway, 16 teams competed in 4 spots. 1970 would see one of the biggest qualifying things, with Honduras and El Salvador facing each other in what they call the soccer war. El Salvador won that. But in Group A, they sucked. They couldn't get a point off the Russians, Mexicans, or Belgians. Mexico, as the host of the 1970 World Cup, got in kind of there. The Soviets actually beat Mexico on goal differential. While they both were at +5, they tied each other. But because, in real life, the Russians would have been first in the group. And they were. Group 2 was a very tight one with only 3 matches by decision. Well, Italy won once and tied twice in the group of Uruguay, Sweden, and Israel. Sweden lost out on goal differential to Uruguay. It was for the best. And Israel qualified for the first and only time in World Cup history in 1970. In Group 3 was what they called the first major World Cup group of death, with Brazil, England, Romania, and the Czechs in it. England survived, winning 2 out of 3. They did lose to Brazil, but it's Brazil. What do you expect? Thankfully, England beat Romania, and the Czechs helped out as they qualified for the quarterfinals. Group 4 saw Germany and Peru get in ahead of Bulgaria and Morocco. And it was kind of easy to see that it was just Germany, West Germany, and everyone else. So the knockout stages, Uruguay on a goal in the 117th minute over the Russians. 1 out. Italy crushed Mexico, the host country, 4-1. The funny thing was the quarterfinal of the Soviets and Uruguay was held at Azteca, whereas the quarterfinal for Mexico was in Toluca. They couldn't change it to give Mexico the Azteca. Kind of weird. Anyhow, Brazil took care of Peru 4-2, Cubia scoring, and Germany took on England in that famous game, which saw England start 2-up with Mullery and Peters, and then they took out a couple people, anticipating the semifinal clash with Italia. One tiny problem, though. England botched it. Germany scored 3 goals. Beckenbauer, Sealer, and then Gerd Muller in extra time. And worst of all, Peter Bonatti was in net for England instead of Gordon Banks, because Gordon Banks had what they called Mexican tummy. In the semis, Brazil usually beat Uruguay 3-1, even though Pele almost scored off of a heel turn. And then came one of the greatest games of all time, Italy versus Germany. All that. So anyway, Italy took care of Germany in extra time. Both teams scored once in regulation. Bonasega for Italy and Schnellinger for Germany, just on the death. And then came 5 goals in extra time. Germany's 2 goals were scored by Gerd Muller. Italy's 3 goals by Bertinac, Luigi Riva, and Rivera. Germany did win third place 1-0 over Uruguay, and in the final, one of the greatest finals of all time, saw Brazil 4-1 with what they call the team goal, in which almost every Brazilian touched the ball and didn't concede possession to Italy. And Carlos Alberto, who died 3 to 5 years ago, he scored a massive goal Pele, Gerson, and Jarcinho scoring for Brazil. Bonacegda scored for Italia. But Brazil did it. Pele and Co won, and Pele could retire from international football knowing he was a champ. And then we get to 1974 and the tournament in Deutschland and all that. A lot of people said Brazil was going to get the World Cup, but no, they couldn't. They actually did it by like continents, and it was Europe's turn and all that. So anyway, at the same time, 1978 and 1982 tournaments were at the same time. But anyway, Germany agreed to a deal with Spain, saying that if Spain would help West Germany's 1974 tournament bid, West Germany would get for Spain to do the 1982 thing unopposed and all that. The Russians were actually disqualified from qualification, refusing to play in Chile because of a coup d'etat and all that. This was, anyway, major. So yeah, Germany got to host everything. And then it's still 16 teams in 4 groups. Group 1 saw East Germany, West Germany, Chile, and Australia qualifying for it. And people were shocked that East Germany made the World Cup for one thing. And for another thing, they were paired up with West Germany. Some say it was done on purpose. East Germany beat their West neighbors 1-0 in a goal by Jürgen Spadhauser. Well, Spadhauser said he would not have scored the goal if he knew that it was the propaganda thing. West Germany were 2-1 and got second place with 4 points. Chile and Australia were a bit off more than 2. And Australia, this was the last World Cup till 2006 that they actually qualified for. The big story, of course, is that, you know, they were jinxed and all that. Group 2 saw Yugoslavia, Brazil, Scotland, and Zaire. Zaire, now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo, I didn't butcher it this time, got beaten by 14 goals in 3 games, in a combined 14 goals in 3 games, not scoring 1 point. Yugoslavia, Brazil, and Scotland were all at 4 points. Unfortunately, due to goal differential, Brazil snuck into second place. Yugoslavia crushed Zaire into hamburger meat, 9-0. Brazil beat Zaire by 3, whereas Scotland only beat Zaire by 2. That bit Scotland in the ass, in essence. Of course, Zaire had their own problems and all that, and Mobutu, the dictator, was not too happy with their performance. In Group 3, you had the Dutch, Swedes, Bulgarians, and Uruguayans. And the Dutch and Swedes moved on to the next round. Bulgaria, I was actually shocked Uruguay didn't do so well. They usually do. But yeah, the Dutch and Swedes did it. Well, that total football for the Dutch, because they had done well. They beat Uruguay 2-0, they tied Sweden 0-0, and then they gave up an own goal to Bulgaria. In Group 4, you had Poland, Argentina, Italy, and Haiti. This was a shock because Italy usually always does well. Italy did beat Haiti 3-1, which was great, but they gave up the first goal of the game on a goal by Emmanuel Zidane, who somehow slotted the ball past Dinosaur, breaking his over 1,300-minute streak of international play without giving up a goal. They could only muster 1-1 tie with Argentina, and then they got beaten by Poland of all teams 2-1. That gave Poland tops in the group because they beat Argentina, which was actually a massive shock in itself. Italy were out. Haiti scored twice. Anyway, in the second, they decided to do something stupid. They decided to have a second group stage with the 8 teams in 2 groups of 4. The top teams in 2 of the 4 groups, and then the second place teams in the other 2 groups would meet each other. So we had the Dutch, Brazilians, East Germans, and Argentina in one group. The Dutch were 3-0 and got to the final. Brazil lost to the Dutch, which was actually shocking. And of course, it was winner take all in the last game. East Germany and Argentina fell by the wayside. So yeah, it was actually shocking, but yeah. So what happened, FIFA said that the top team in each of the 2 groups would go to the final, and then the second place guys went to third place. In Group B, the West Germans beat it up on Poland, Sweden, and Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia were exposed for not having any good opponents to face. Sweden even exposed them, which was funny. Germany had to beat Poland to move on to the final. Poland shocked Brazil for third place, and The Germans won 2-1 over the Dutch. Neeskens did score a penalty, and then Breitner scored a penalty for West Germany, and then Gerd Muller scored one between the legs of Youngblood. And Total Football couldn't believe their luck. One of the greatest teams did not win the final. And then next up is 1978, as the World Cup would be held in Argentina. Of course, a lot of people, it was controversial because of the Argentine authoritarian military junta, which of course happened after they got chosen in 1966. All that. So yeah, it was just huge with the military coup and all that. So it was 16 teams in 4 groups. In Group 1, Italy, Argentina, France, and Hungary played. Italy and Argentina qualified with wins. No ties were in this thing. So Italy won all 3 games. Argentina won 2 out of 3. France could only be Hungary. And I believe that game for France, was it France Argentina or France Hungary? That's both teams wear the same colors, but I think France forgot to tell them what colors to wear, and then they had to wear green jerseys and all that. I think that was Hungary. Anyway, yeah, Italy shocked Argentina by a score of 1-0 to win the group. Group 2 saw Poland, West Germany, Tunisia, and Mexico. Tunisia made history beating Mexico 3-1, becoming the first African nation to win a World Cup match. Poland and West Germany pulled away, but Poland 2-1. That was big. They tied their rivals Deutschland. Group 3 saw Austria and Brazil qualify at the expense of Spain and Sweden. Yeah, Austria shocked everyone by going 2-1 in the group. Yeah, they lost to Brazil, but I mean, it's Brazil. They shocked Spain, in my mind. Group 4 saw Peru, Holland, Scotland, and Iran. Of course, this was a group that Scotland were in the top 10 and were expected to win this group. Well, and go with the Dutch into the round 2. Unfortunately, as I said in my Scottish video earlier in the series, Peru beat them 3-1. They could only muster a freaking tie to Iran, and then they beat the Dutch, even though the Dutch sat out lots of players. Peru won the group, 2 wins and a tie. Yeah, they tied the Dutch. The Dutch beat Scotland on goal differential. Of course, it was head-to-head, and Scotland would have won, and the Dutch would have definitely put their best players forward. But yeah, the Dutch beat Scotland on goal differential. Iran could be happy knowing they had tied the Scots. So again, they went through the second group stage thing, and again, like 74, the winner of each of those 2 mini groups would go on to the final, and the second placers would go for third. The Dutch won the group with Italy, Germany, and Austria. Austria can take great pleasure in beating West Germany and screwing them over, as the Dutch would win the group, go to the final, and Italy would take third place. And the Group B saw Argentina and Brazil, both 2-0-1, getting Argentina on goal differential, beat Brazil to move on to the final, and Brazil would be forced to play third. Poland lost to Brazil, and that was just deserved for 1974. Peru sucked, but what was even worse was Peru scoring a 6-0 loss to Argentina. It was said that Argentina forced Peru to lose by more than 4 goals so that they could get to the final, not Brazil. And they basically unfroze assets to the Peruvian dictators and all that. The Peruvian government, if you will. In the knockout stages, Brazil beat Italy 2-1, even though there were a pair of long shot goals. And in the final, the Dutch did tie the game at 1 in regulation, but in extra time, Kempes and Bertoni scored. Argentina won 3-1, and a lot of people said it was a fix. Argentina basically were trying to ruin the Dutch, and they did, in a sense. So we're on to 1982 now, and a massive semifinal. That's what the title card alludes. But in 1982, Spain were chosen as host nation. Germany supported Spain's thing and all that. And of course, there was a problem because the World Cup in Spain was controversial because of Francisco Franco's regime. However, by 1975, the regime was over with the death of Franco. So practically that meant that the Spaniards had no issues. Then they decided that FIFA decided to expand from 16 to 24. For the first time in history, there would be more than 16 teams. There would be 24. Mostly to get Africa and Asian countries and maybe a North American team or two to qualify and all that. It worked because 5 teams qualified in the World Cup for the first time: Algeria, Cameroon, Honduras, Kuwait, and New Zealand. In the first group stage, Group 1 saw Poland, Italy, Cameroon, and Peru in the matchup. Poland and Italy qualified, although Italy needed goals scored to beat Cameroon because they both had the same goal differential even, but Italy scored twice, Cameroon once. But not so bad for Cameroon on your debut. In Group 2, West Germany, Austria, Algeria, and Chile took part. Germany, Austria, and Algeria all were 2-1, but goal differential decided that Germany and Austria got through. And yes, that is, of course, the disgrace in Gijón, the matchup in which Germany and Austria set up a result to screw Algeria over after Algeria shocked West Germany in the first game of the thing. But FIFA let it be known that all final day group games would be at the same time to afford the RG. Group 3 saw Belgium and Argentina qualify at Hungary and El Salvador's expense. Hungary did score 10 goals in one game, but that's against El Salvador. Laszlo Kiss actually came off the bench and scored 3 goals in 7 minutes, which was amazing. But yeah, El Salvador were useless. Belgium and Argentina knew we were in. Belgium shocked Argentina 1-0. Group day. Group 4, England, France, Czechs, and Kuwait. England shocked everyone by winning all 3 games, especially against France, who were a decent team in their own mind. Robson scored within the first 30 seconds. France got in over the Czechs and Kuwait. Of course, France and Kuwait, that was the famous game in which the head of the Kuwaitian Football Association, Ashik, was mad that the French scored a fourth goal when Kuwait stopped because of a whistle. But France won the game 4-1 anyway. Group 5 saw Northern Ireland, Spain, Yugoslavia, and Honduras compete. Northern Ireland topped the group with 1 win and 2 ties. But the big thing was that the win over Spain was huge. Spain made a costly error, and Northern Ireland's Jerry Armstrong scored a key goal. That goal actually ruined Yugoslavia because Spain got in over Yugoslavia to the next round due to goals scored because the goal differential was the same. So yeah, so instead of Yugoslavia being fed it would be Northern Ireland. Group 6, the Brazilians swept through the Russians, Scots, and New Zealand. The worst part for Scotland was that, yeah, they crushed New Zealand 5-2, and their goal differential was even par. They actually lost by goal differential yet again. The Soviets beat them on goal differential. The Soviets were 1-1-1, so were Scotland. The Soviets got goal differential +2, Scotland even par. And it was said that if Scotland had not conceded against the Kiwis, well, they gave up 2 goals, they would have actually snuck in because of goals scored over the Russians. In the second group stage, they had to set up everything and all that. But of course, it'd be a little bit controversial. You have 3-team groups to get into the semifinals: Poland, Soviets, and Belgium. Poland and Soviets played the final game of that group in controversy because the Soviets were taking over Poland and all that. It was a nil-nil tie, and thanks to Poland's crushing of Belgium, where the Soviets couldn't do much against Belgium, they got it. Group B, the Germans won and tied against England and Spain. Well, they tied England 0-0. They beat Spain, but England couldn't beat Spain because that would have helped out. But yeah, the Germans survived. Group C, Italy, Brazil, Argentina, another massive 3-team group. Italy and Brazil both won their matches against Argentina, setting themselves up for a 1-game playoff of their own. And Paulo Rossi, who was out for 2 years due to a gambling scandal, actually scored the hat trick and beat Brazil. And everyone said the 1982 Brazilians should have been in the Final Four. France took care of Austria and Northern Ireland to move on in Group D. In the semifinals, Italy beat up on Poland 2-0, but it was the second semifinal in Seville, the Barber of Seville, if you will, as Harold Schumacher launched himself at Patrick Battiston, who was a substitute, and didn't get any card at all. Germany went on to win the penalty shootout 5-4 on France, which was the first World Cup penalty shootout. Poland shocked France 3-2 to make third place, and Italy beat Germany 3-1 and giving revenge for the French. So we head to 1986 and yet another tournament with 24 teams. But of course, it's big because Canada was in there and all that. Colombia actually were chosen as host in 1974. Unfortunately, though, they were financially ruined and all that. Colombia actually had financial problems because they couldn't support 24 teams. A 16-team tournament they could have, but anyway, yeah. In November 1982, Colombian President Betancourt said that they couldn't afford to host the World Cup, so now they had to find someone. And Mexico got it. Fortunately, well, there was a severe earthquake and all that, and Mexico's ability to organize the event. Fortunately, though, that Mexico City earthquake in September 1985 didn't ruin the stadiums and all that, so the preparations could go ahead. So it was still six groups of four, as always. Group A saw Argentina, Italy, Bulgaria, and South Korea compete. Argentina were 2-0-1, and Italy were 1-0-2. So, Argentina and Italy basically in it. However, FIFA changed the rules on the tournament and said that the four best third place teams would actually get in. So you could still take third in your group and make it. Bulgaria was one of the first teams to take advantage of it. They had two ties, but 2 points were enough for third place and to move on. That's why South Korea qualified. Group E, Mexico and Paraguay were the top two. Belgium qualified, well, they beat Iraq, and with 3 points, they were one of the best fourth place teams. And yes, Iraq qualified for the tournament with the Hussein boys taking over. Group C was Canada's group with the Soviets, French, and Hungarians. Canada unfortunately lost all three games, but they held the defending European champ French to one solitary goal. They gave up two to the Soviets and Hungary. They only gave up 5 goals, which was actually pretty impressive, especially with the fact that Hungary gave up 9 goals and took third place. Well, 6 to the Soviets, their former brothers in arms, if you will. But yeah, the Soviets and French qualified. Hungary's 2 points were just not enough, even though they had a win. Group D, Brazil and Spain qualified top two. Northern Ireland did not have the magic of 1982, and Algeria not so much either. Group E saw Denmark and Deutschland moving on, whereas Uruguay got one of those fourth place spots with 2 points, two ties, including tying Scotland and basically booting them off the pitch to make sure Scotland didn't get in somehow. Group F, Morocco won the group with England, Poland, and Portugal. It was a tight one. It was a tight group, and England shockingly lost to Portugal. Not for the last time. But yeah, Morocco won the group. Fortunately, England on goal differential took second, and Poland they had 3 points. That was enough for third place, and Portugal were bit. The third place teams, it was Belgium, Poland, Bulgaria, and Uruguay. Although, in likelihood, Hungary should have moved on because they won a game, although it was against Canada. And if they went that, then Uruguay would have been the ones booted from the round of 16, and Hungary would get in. The knockout stages, Mexico beat Bulgaria 2-0 on Negrete's spider kick at Azteca, 114,000 fans. Belgium and the Russians played to a 4-3 match, Belgium winning in extra time, needing to. Belanov scoring a hat trick for the Soviets, but the Belgians won 4-3. Brazil crushed Poland 4-0. Argentina narrowly beat Uruguay 1-0. France beat their old rivals Italy 2-0. Platini and Stopra. West Germany only scored once on Morocco. England crushed Paraguay thanks to a pair of goals by Lineker, and Spain crushed Denmark 5-1. 4 goals by Buttagerano. Quarterfinals were ones of penalties. 3 of the 4 quarterfinals went to penalties. France needed penalties against Brazil and shocked them. Germany and Mexico were 0-0. Mexico were trying to hide things and make sure that, they could beat Germany in the penalty shootout, but unfortunately they couldn't. Spain and Belgium went to penalties. Belgium nipped the Spaniards 5-4. But the one quarterfinal that didn't go to extra time, or didn't go to penalties or extra time, was, of course, Hand of God, Argentina 2-1 over England. It had to be a Hand of God by Maradona because of the fact that Peter Shilton's like 6'2", 6'1", and Maradona was like 5'6". You knew that Maradona couldn't head the ball over Shilton's head without doing something. And of course, Maradona told his team to cheer for them, otherwise the goal would have been taken away. England did well, and then Maradona scored his second goal 4 minutes later, which was actually a clean goal right through the English defense. Lineker scored for England and nipped one off the post as well. In the semis, Germany beat France 2-0 again, beating them in the semifinal. Bremer and Fuller scoring, and this time it was less controversial. And as Azteca, Argentina won 2-0 on pair goals by Maradona against Belgium. France beat Belgium in extra time 4-2 for third, and Argentina beat the Germans 3-2. Brown and Faldano scoring for Argentina, Rummenigge and Fuller, and then Burchaka from Maradona scoring, make it 3-2 and giving Maradona a title, which he didn't really deserve. There's a massive reason why there's the title card saying boring, because in 1990, it actually and I had an average of 2.21 goals per game, which actually stood. And in 1992, FIFA decided to change the rule that back passes to goalies were illegal. The goalies would have to kick the ball instead of holding onto the ball, and they made 3 points for a win to increase awareness and all that. Italy beat the Russians for the 1990 World Cup, as in hosting it, and that worked out. And the group stages. Um, Group A saw Italy with the Czechs, Austria, and the U.S. The U.S. qualifying on the final day of North American qualifying over Trinidad and Tobago, kind of getting the advantage because Mexico were booted for fielding overage players at an Olympic tournament and all that. So Italy won all 3 games. The Czechs won twice. Austria and the U.S. were booted. The Americans at least scored twice in their first appearance in 40 years. In Group B, Cameroon were with Romania, Argentina, and the Soviets. Cameroon and Romania were top 2. Cameroon won twice and lost once. Of course, the first day win over Argentina, over Pompidou. But Pompidou actually was injured against the Russians, so they had to go with Sergio Bogucira, who actually produced well. Yeah, Romania beat Argentina on goals scored to take second place. Fortunately, Argentina took one of the third place spots, and the Soviets only had 2 points. In Group C, Scotland got taken out by Costa Rica, of all freaking teams. They did beat Sweden, but then they lost to Brazil on a thunderbolt by Branco. Scotland were heartbroken. I mean, they were destined for top 2. Sweden wasn't really that great. Costa Rica got lucky because Mexico's disqualification. But yeah, Costa Rica shocked the world by beating Sweden and Scotland. If Scotland had beaten Costa Rica, obviously they would have been in. And, you know, all that. Group D, the Germans were 2-0-1, took down Yugoslavia, Colombia, and the Emirates. Yugoslavia took second place with 4 points. Colombia qualified for third place, got in with 3 points, beating up on the Emirates, who only scored twice. Group B, Spain and Belgium were tops in the group. Uruguay was one of the top third place teams with a win over South Korea and a tie against Spain. Group F saw England, Ireland, Holland, and Egypt playing one of the lowest scoring tournaments of all time, groups of all time. There were only, what, 7 goals scored in those. Yeah, there were only 7 goals scored in the group stage with England, Ireland, Holland, and Egypt. Pathetic. And no team slotted more than 1 goal per game. England, Ireland, and Holland all scored twice. Egypt only scored once. England, thanks to their win over Egypt, actually qualified top of the group. Ireland and Holland were tied. They tied each other. They tied in goal differential and goals scored. There was a drawing of lots to determine second and third. Well, they both would have got in anyhow. But yeah, they drew lots. Ireland was out of the Dutch. The third place teams that got in: Argentina, Colombia, Holland, and Uruguay. Austria and Scotland got bit. In the knockout stages, in the round of 16, Cameroon beat Colombia in extra time thanks to the stupidity of goalkeeper Rene Higuita trying to play the ball in the outfield and then getting it stripped and Milla scoring. Well, of course, Higuita would not play in the 94 World Cup because of his jail sentence. The Czechs crushed Costa Rica 4-1. Argentina beat Brazil 1-0, and people actually confessed that there was some poisoning. West Germany beat the Dutch 2-1, old rivals, and the Germans got in thanks to the whole thing about the Fuller being spat on by Rijkaard. Ireland and Romania went to penalties. Ireland survived penalties over Romania. The Italians beat Uruguay 2-0. Yugoslavia scored a 93rd-minute goal to beat Spain, and England needed extra time to beat Belgium on a David Platt goal in the 119th minute. Quarterfinals, Argentina and Yugoslavia went to penalties. Argentina survived penalties even though Maradona missed. Italy beat Ireland 1-0. Germany beat the Czechs 1-0, and England were down 2-1 on Koundé and Keke goals. But fortunately, Lineker converted a pair of penalties, although some say they were dodgy. Semi-finals, Argentina and Italy. It was actually shocking because Maradona actually was booed in Naples, even though he played for Napoli. They went to penalties and all that, and Argentina survived 4-3 on penalties. Germany and England also went to penalties, which the Germans won, and England had their first World Cup shootout loss of many. Worst of all was that Paul Gascoigne, or Gaza to you and me, was booted, was given a yellow card in the match against Germany, and that meant that he was booted for the final. And Gary Lineker did the whole thingy and all that. Italy beat England for third 2-1, giving some justification for the host, and the Germans beat the Argentines on a penalty by Andreas Brehme. So something good happened. So 1994 was given to the Americans. They actually were ahead of Brazil and Morocco in the vote process. Brazil will get theirs later on, but yeah, the United States got it. But there was one little caveat. The U.S. had to have a professional league in process. They set up Major League Soccer for 1996, and everyone was happy and all that. Of course, 1994 would also be known for one of the most craziest qualification moments of all time, and I will allude to that. I will put that in the playlist below. I mean, in the description below about the 1994 qualification and how big it was. Anyhow, so yeah, every continent had a qualification story. From Canada's second place in North America not being enough, and having to face Australia, who won the Oceania thing, to the fact that Argentina lost to Colombia, but got lucky needing to beat Australia in the playoff. To Africa having Zambia have a national tragedy that almost resulted in them winning a trip to the World Cup in the first place with the replacement players. To Europe having a lot of problems, especially England not being able to beat freaking Norway or Poland, and also the fact that France had needed 1 point in their final two qualification games to qualify and failed. To Japan's uh, agony of Doha, and they have never missed the World Cup since. And that's all. So anyway, Group One saw the host Americans with Romania, Switzerland, and Colombia. Everyone thought Colombia was going to be good enough to win the tournament. They did win a game, but they only won one game, lost twice. Romania were tops of the group 2-1, winning the opening day game against Colombia. So that was big and all that. Switzerland beat the Americans for second place on goal differential, and fortunately, the Americans got one of those third place things because they would have been screwed. Group B saw Brazil and Sweden qualify at the expense of Russia and Cameroon, even though that Oleg Selenko scored 5 goals against the Cameroonians. But it was not enough. They needed to beat the other teams. Group C, Germany and Spain got through at the expense of Korea and Bolivia. Group D saw Nigeria, Bulgaria, and Argentina all 2-1, and the Greeks being the big whipping boys. And this was before Greece's powerful win in the 2004 Euros. So yeah, Nigeria qualified ahead of Bulgaria and Argentina. Nigeria won on goal differential for the first spot. Bulgaria and Argentina, I think, well, head to head, Bulgaria beat Argentina, but that was because Maradona was booted from the tournament because of his substance use. And, Argentina could have been bit completely. Group B saw all 4 teams, Mexico, Ireland, Italy, and Norway, go 1-1-1. But on goals scored, Mexico got in first place. Ireland and Italy, Ireland shocked Italy June 18th, 94 in New Jersey. So they got second place. Italy got third. Poor Norway, 4 points. A few teams got 3 points and got in, but Norway couldn't. Group F also saw 3 teams at 2-1. The Dutch, the Arabians, Saudi Arabia, that is in Belgium. Morocco were the whipping boys 0-3. So yeah, Saudi Arabia beating Belgium on the Said Al solo goal. But they beat Morocco, which was powerful enough. And a lot of people said, wait a minute, they're from the same continent. No, they're not. Saudi Arabia is in the Middle East. They're an Asia team. Morocco's an African team. So based off of goals scored, the Dutch and Saudi Arabia were 1-2. The Dutch won the group. So yeah, 4 points wasn't enough for third place. In the round of 16, Germany beat Belgium 3-2. It was a close one. Spain shut out Switzerland 3-0. Sweden took care of the Arabians 3-1. Romania shocked Argentina 3-2, but that was mostly with Maradona's absence. The Dutch beat the Irish 2-0. Brazil beat the Americans 1-0 on the 4th of July, and of course there was controversy about. Italy won in extra time over Nigeria, thanks to Roberto Baggio, who kind of saved the team from elimination in the group stages. Yeah, Nigeria was actually up 1-0 in the game, and almost ruined Italy. Mexico and Bulgaria went to penalties, but Bulgaria survived on penalties. Italy, and in the quarterfinals, Italy beat Spain 2-1, internal rivals, the Baggios, Nino and Roberto, no relation, scoring. Brazil beat the Dutch in a massive game, 3-2. Bulgaria shocked Germany 2-1 on a Lechkov header that shocked the defending world champs. And Romania played Sweden in a massive penalty shootout after the game ended up 2-2 and the Swedes survived. Semifinals, Italy beat Bulgaria 2-1. Bulgaria, nice try. Brazil needed an 80th minute goal by Romario to beat Sweden. And then in the third place game, Sweden crushed Bulgaria into fine powder. And then in the finals, Brazil and Italy couldn't find each other, so they went to penalties. And that was when Roberto Baggio had a chance to extend the penalty shootout to the fifth and botched it, and everyone blamed him for Italy's misfortune. But it was Baggio who saved Italy from elimination from Nigeria in the round 16 in the first place. So basically, it was that old trope. Blame that on which you do not understand. And finally, to end this video, we look at the first World Cup that had 32 teams, and that's 1998. They decided to expand again. It was huge and all that. France winning the World Cup bid, and then, you had 8 groups of 4. Top 2, no excuses. So anyway, Brazil and Norway got a Group A over Morocco and Scotland. Scotland, the team's so typically Scottish. They end up losing 2-1 to Brazil. They actually lost on an own goal. They tied Norway. They should have beaten them and got spanked by Morocco. But Morocco's 4 points were not enough, as Brazil were 2-1 and Norway were 1 win and 2 ties. In Group B, Italy and Chile got in. It was close. Austria and Cameroon both had 2 points, but they didn't get in. The only 2 wins were by Italy over Austria and Cameroon. That's kind of why, Chile got through with 3 ties. Austria and Cameroon couldn't believe it. In Group C, the host French were 3-0 against Denmark, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia. Denmark beat up on the Saudis, which actually was good enough for second place in the group. Group D, Nigeria and Paraguay got in. Spain shockingly didn't make it in. It was Paraguay with Jose Luis Chilivert, one of their star goalies, and a bit of a flake. Bulgaria also fell. Group E, the Dutch and Mexicans both scored 5 points, but the Dutch on goal differential qualified first. Mexico took second. Belgium and South Korea could not do anything, and Belgium went down with 3 ties. They needed to win. They couldn't. Group F, Germany and Yugoslavia. The last tournament Yugoslavia was in as Yugoslavia with 7 points. The Americans lost to Iran in what they called the friendship match that was kind of set up on purpose. Maybe, Germany won on goal differential because Yugoslavia. Group G, Romania was beat England, which was a shock. But England survived, beating Tunisia and Colombia to move on. And in Group H, Argentina were 3-0. Croatia, Japan, and Jamaica failed. But Croatia won twice. No ties in that group. Straight out wins in this group. Jamaica beating Japan, I think. Round of 16, Italy beat Norway only 1-0. Brazil beat up on their South American rivals Chile 4-1. France on the golden goal by Laurent Blanc, which is the first goal in extra time, is the winner. They beat Paraguay 1-0 on that mark. Poor Jose Luis Chilifert, but the hosts were going on. Denmark crushed Nigeria 4-1. Germany beat Mexico narrowly 2-1. The Dutch beat the Yugoslavs 2-1. Croatia beat Romania 1-0. And then Argentina and England played in the last round of 16 match, which actually was massively controversial because of Beckham's petulant kick at the Argentine Simeone. And that was a yellow card, if anything, but it was a red card. Beckham wasn't there for the penalty shootout, and England failed again, and then they hung Beckham in effigy. France and Italy were the first quarterfinals to move on to face each other at the Stade de France, and they needed penalties. And Roberto Baggio converted his penalty this time, but the French won 4-3. Brazil won 3-2 over Denmark. Denmark were not giving up against the Brazilians. The Dutch beat the Argentines 2-1 thanks to Kluivert, and of course, the Dutch call of that radio announcer on Bergkamp's call. Dennis Bergkamp! Dennis Bergkamp! Dennis Bergkamp! Dennis Bergkamp! Oh, Dennis Bergkamp! And then Croatia shocked Germany 3-0. To beat Germany was one thing, but to win by 3 was another. Germany was a little petulant. Brazil and the Dutch in the first semifinals in Marseille saw them on penalties. Brazil winning 4-2 on penalties. France took down Croatia 2-1, a pair of goals by Thuram, although one of the Croatian players got Laurent Blanc booted because of a fake play. Croatia shocked the Dutch for third place in their first World Cup, splitting off from Yugoslavia. Croatia shocked the world by taking third. And then, of course, Brazil took on France in the final. It was amazing. Zidane with a pair of goals. Emmanuel Petit iced it, but the main story was Ronaldo's performance, and he sucked terribly. He allegedly had an epileptic fit and was not on the team sheet, but then Nike may have pressured Brazil to put him on the team sheet. He played like a ghost. Ronaldo will get his revenge 4 years later, but I'm just saying it's just bad. So anyway, we've gone through a tier list of 16 to 24 to 32 teams, and we'll take a look at the last World Cups of the 32 team era from 2002 to 2022 and send us for 2026. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.